Relax and get loose while I put you up on game. The Figure Booth with Josh and Nate. This that podcast folk. Those in the know. Batman vs. Iron Man. How would it go? We talking one of a kind. Collectibles. Mezco Toyz are respectable. It's unacceptable if it's not in the packaging. Nate don't take pics if you ain't rapping it. Nate's dirty tricks are always happening. But damn it, man. Don't you be stressing. Round here we believe in plastic confessions. We trying to figure out the figures that's gonna stand the test of time. That G.I. Joe handmade hit me in the spine. There's perfection in the way that these toys are made. But I also wanna know, do I pick Wade or Slade? So this is where I come to kick it with the guys. The Figure Booth. Like, comment, and subscribe.
Welcome to the Figure Booth. Hello, you have made it to the channel where we talk about the ups and downs about the modern day collectors. We go over our weekly hauls, we go over pre-orders, and from time to time we do interviews with those in the toy community. My name is Josh, aka Prime to the First, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host Nate.
Hey guys, this is Nate, aka FigureFan_Nate, and you've reached episode 62, which we're calling a full 360.
Full 360, getting some stretches in done. Make sure you warm up because we've seen those reels and the trailers that people have been putting out from the enablers. Mario been stretching, so take his course. Make sure you do it right. But we're not talking about stretching today, are we?
No, we're talking about an individual in the toy community, and a very well-known individual. He's been in the game for a long time. He's got his own podcast. He's also part of another podcast, which we're going to ask him about, and he's an avid Mezco collector and also a supporter of the Mezco community. He's one of those guys that, like, when you hear news about Mezco, you're like, okay, I hope I get an update from him soon.
Yeah.
Because he's doing the work and, providing something to the community that I think a lot of people may take for granted.
Yeah, it's tough keeping up with all these freaking updates and making sure that the information is out there,
Right.
Yeah.
So who we got, Prime? Let's not delay any further.
Let's bring him in. Let's bring him on board. Let's give it up for the one, the only, Fabster.
Hello. How's it going,
the
guys?
Crowd goes wild.
I love the applause. That's awesome.
We got a whole crowd waiting for you, man. The hype is up.
I love it. Good to be here, guys. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Fabio. Really a pleasure to talk to you, man. We're obviously been big fans of your work and your YouTube, and like I said, the things that you're providing the community. I think you're most well known for your Mezco love, right? Or at least that's one of the things you're most well known for. And you can see behind you, you've got a lot of Mezco love. So have you been in the Mezco? I mean, have you been collecting since the inception of 112 or?
Yeah, pretty much. That was where it started. At the time, what was it, 2015, when the 112 Collective launched, I was in deep in a bunch of other lines. I've been collecting, basically my whole life. So since pre Marvel Legends, Spider-Man Classics, X-Men, Toy Biz stuff. And then when Spider-Man Classics and then come Marvel Legends hit, I was there at the ground level of it. I was, 6-7 years old or whatever. That was my childhood toy line. Followed it into the Hasbro era by the time I got to high school, and sort of, dipped out a little bit to focus on other high school things. And then when I graduated and I was going to school, I was recapturing those hobbies, that love for that hobby through my involvement and discovery of ACBA. I figured, I learned that there was this whole community that was into this stuff, doing things with these figures that I had only ever conceived of. And I fell right back into the hobby and have been back into it since. So yeah, other than a few dark years, I've pretty much been collecting my whole life. And when the 112 Collective launched in 2015. I was still in the Hasbro Marvel Legends. I had discovered NECA at that point. I was getting a few things here and there, but as the line started to grow, as 112 started to grow, I saw my focus sort of shifting that way a little bit more and getting more into their form factor, their style of figure, their design sensibilities and all that. And eventually I had to make some cuts, and I decided to let go of everything else that I was collecting. A Marvel Legends collection that was over 15 years deep, a NECA collection. I had one of the biggest Predator collections at the time, and Alien and everything. And I just had to let it all go because I saw my focus going here. And I've been just pretty much a Mezco head since. near completist, I would say.
Wow.
I was just going to ask if you are complete. Sorry,
yeah,
bro.
I was going to say that's crazy because we've talked about that a couple of times where I think a lot of collectors out there have a challenge of doing that, letting go Marvel, any other line, and just solely going into Mezco. Like, really, I don't know. I can totally relate to that because there was a point where I was so hardcore into Mezco where nothing else really grabbed my attention because I don't know. I felt like there was a new level of appreciation for the Mezco figure, and I was like, I'm just going to dedicate myself to this, and then that way I don't have to worry about trying to keep up with every single other line. Was that something that you saw fairly easy for you to do, or was that a little bit more challenging?
I mean, it really took me having to put my stuff in storage for like 6 months to really realize like how much I had, how many bins, how much it was costing me monthly to have like the larger storage unit to put everything away and everything. And then when I finally moved into my new place and was getting ready to take everything out of the storage, I was like, I mean, I kept my Mezco stuff with me while everything else was in storage. So that was another thing that helped me realize just where my priorities were. And it wasn't just so much like Mezco as a brand, like yes, it was, but it was also the form factor of 112 soft goods that like really started to grab me. And so many more companies have propped up since then that are kind of trying to imitate that Mezco 112 soft goods style. And there's no question Mezco is the best doing it. So more than anything, it's, as someone who still comes from that ACBA photography background, I look for things that look good on camera. You know, it's someone who works in production. I look for things that look good on camera and stuff. And for me, it was a little bit easier to let go of everything because I realized the two form factors didn't kind of like gel as well, at least in my mind's eye, where if you're doing photography with a soft goods figure, it requires different lighting and, you know, different setup than things without soft goods. So to have the two of them in photos together, like my mind does not reconcile that. So it was a little bit easier in that sense. Plus it was all like packed up from it being in storage that I could just kind of let it all go without, you know, having that tear down feeling of like, you know, having to take it off the display and then go to sell it right away.
Yeah. Well, and I respect the focus too. You know, even though it's one of those things I think we all kind of struggle with is not knowing if I want to stay loyal to this line that I've been collecting for so long, or if I can shift out of it. I've got all this stuff that I've been collecting for so long. Should I just hold on to it? You know, and then you realize I can't collect everything. And that's something we've talked about a lot on the show is, you know, I've got to have some type of focus. Otherwise, it's just going to get out of control. And I'm going to have all these storage units and things like that.
Yeah.
So I respect that you're able to do that purge because I think it's really hard for people to let some stuff go that they've been so attached to for so long. And I've done the same thing where I've had to purge other figures in order to maybe back up my Mezco collection, or if I want to shift my focus from there, you know, purging something else. So just being willing to let go of stuff, you know, is a hard thing to do, but I respect that you were able to kind of identify that early on in your Mezco collecting. You're like, okay, I'm going Mezco, and that's all I want. Is that all you still collect, or do you kind of dabble? I know, you know, sometimes you show off other figures.
Yeah, I've been getting into, and first of all, as far as the focus thing, I wouldn't wish this on anybody. It is so difficult. Like, so many companies are putting out so much good product. Like, we are in the best age of collecting that there has ever been. Figures have never been better than they are right now, and it is very hard to miss out on a lot of what's really good product from great companies. So, you know, it is hard, but it becomes a little bit easier after a while. You get over a certain hump, and then eventually you just got to realize that anything outside of that focus might take away from something that you actually want, actually like for real later on. And as far as, you know, being in deep with other lines, yeah, that's something I did have to recognize early, where a lot of the reason I was staying into the stuff that I was collecting was sunk cost fallacy. It was just, I've been spending money on this thing. I have this big collection of it. I need to continue getting them. And yeah, being aware of that was definitely the first step in finally breaking free from that cycle. And with so many new collectors jumping on recently, I see people, you know, I don't want to say making the same mistakes that I did, but definitely falling into those same patterns. And it took, you know, a whole lifetime of collecting basically at that point to get to that point. So anyone who's kind of new into the hobby now, I get it. You know, there is so much good stuff. It's so hard to not get everything, but it's identifying what really speaks to you, what you really, really like, and being able to stick to that and not letting things like nostalgia bait you into buying what could be considered an inferior product.
Yeah.
Right. I love how you state that as cost fallacy.
Yeah.
You know, and I've watched a lot of your streams. You have a really unique take on how you approach collecting and kind of like your personal thoughts. But that cost fallacy is so true, I think, for so many people. You don't even realize that you're doing it. You know, you're just like so loyal to a line, and you feel like you owe it to them to continue to buy their figures, even if it's something you might not be 100% interested in. And then you get this collection full of stuff that you maybe don't care about. But then you have this internal struggle like, well, Hasbro's going to be upset if I don't buy this new wave of Marvel Legends. And the truth is, Hasbro, you know, could maybe care less about you as an individual. They're trying to appeal to the mass market. And it goes with any company. I'm not just picking on Hasbro, but Mayfax, Mythic Legions, even Mezco. You know, like, do what you want to do, not what you feel like you have to do, or being influenced by other people in the community because you want to keep up in that rat race of, hey, I've got the newest wave. Well, I don't have it yet. Okay, well, you're not a true Legends collector, that kind of thing.
That's something I like to state ironically all the time. It's like, well, if you don't get this thing, then are you even a real fan? Like, come on.
Right.
And that's something that it's an internal thought that I've like definitely had too. Like when you know, I remember going to Toys R Us. Getting a Toys R Us credit card back in the day was one of the most dangerous things I ever did. Because I would just go in and I'd see the full wave on the pegs, and it's like, well, what am I gonna do? Not get them? Like, come on. And as far as like getting other stuff, I have been building up a little like Super 7 collection. And I become friends with Kyle over there, and he's a big metalhead like me. So he got me into Ghost, and they're doing these very like deep cut heavy metal icons in both the Reaction and the Ultimates line. And that kind of thing, I feel like I do want to support, not just on a personal level because I'm friends with the designer, but because it's a small company. Like Super 7 is not a multi-billion-dollar corporation like Hasbro. So Hasbro's not going to miss your money at all. But I think that's another interesting thing about the era of collecting that we're in now is these, you know, the marketing people and the personalities that work at Hasbro have made it so they've made themselves so approachable that people feel like they have a real relationship with them. And some people really do, you know, if you're any of the influencers who are doing interviews with them. So it can feel like if you're not buying product from them, you're letting your friends down in a weird way, you know?
Right. Or, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, especially if you're an influencer, you've been receiving some of those figures. You know, you want to try to keep that relationship. So maybe you feel like you have some type of responsibility to, hey, I've received a few, you know, for free, maybe quote unquote free, even though you're still putting in a lot of time and effort to make the content. Should I continue to buy and support their products so that I continue that relationship, you know? So that's a good perspective too. And something maybe it doesn't affect me personally, but I can see that affecting someone's collection in a certain way. Just because they have that coming in.
Yeah, you know, if you go to Comic-Con, any non-influencer collector who's a fan of the brand can just go up and talk to Ryan or Dan from Marvel Legends or Emily and Lenny from G.I. Joe or whatever, and you just like them, you know? And it makes you, you know, excited about their product because they're so excited about it. And it's genuine. They are fans of this stuff as well. But, you know, if the cynic in me is always like, come on, you guys aren't going to miss my money.
It doesn't take, it's not just you funding the line, it's the entire community. So one person changing their mind is not going to make a big difference on Mezco's bottom line. You know? If an entire community shifts, then that's a whole different thing. But you as an individual, maybe not a big impact. And
and that's not what keeps me in it as far as Mezco. Like I just like Mezco. I like the 112 soft goods game. I like where this sort of movement has gone, I guess you could say. And I'm happy to see other companies, you know, step into the arena and put out some good stuff. Like one of the best figures that came out this year was that third party Rorschach, the ink blot.
Oh yeah.
A beautiful figure.
Right there.
Yeah.
There he is. That's it.
Great figure. Yeah, I love that figure. And you're right. You know, you see that more and more. And I think it's because of companies like Mezco putting out what they have makes these other companies and maybe even third-party companies feel like, okay, I need to step up my game and offer something that is on par. So it's almost better the whole, you know, toy community for all of us. Because now you get better quality figures coming out with soft goods and you've got more options, you know, where I remember 3 years ago, I was scared to touch third party. I'm like, I'm not even going to try, you know?
Definitely.
And nowadays, like to your point, that Rorschach is, you know, if somebody told me that was from Mezco and I didn't know, I would probably believe them because it's on par. You know, it's just as good. So
and that extends to, you know, like customs too, where it's so much. I did, you know, customs for years when I was collecting NECA and stuff. I customized the full, you know, Predator team from the original movie, and you know, I can't say that I have like the talent for it. I made some working customs that were fine, but you know, I recognize that that's not necessarily where my talents are. So for me, it's a lot easier and more, I don't know, satisfying to just get a blank body, get some soft goods, get a head cast from somewhere, and fully make a custom figure like that. And we're back to that like Barbie model, basically, of just bodies, buying accessories, buying clothes, and then boom, you got yourself a figure.
And it's so crazy that you mentioned earlier about how like just taking the pictures, and that's, I think I went through that same, I crossed that same bridge where I was doing a lot of toy photography and putting the Mezcos and some of my legends, and I was like, wait, I can see the light shine off the plastic. Like it added, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it takes away the illusion I was trying to create. And I was like, now I was much more, I was more attracted and gravitating towards that soft goods, where I was like, oh, okay, now I like Mezco even more because I'm not seeing the light being reflected off certain parts of the body, or it just felt like two different worlds completely trying to make it work where it didn't. So that, to me, that was like a big thing where I saw that the soft goods added another whole level to the photography where you're creating that scene.
Yeah, that's, I mean, to your point, Prime, that's what got me into Mezco really heavily, I think, because I was, you know, I've said this before, I started my account with just sharing my collection. Happened to see that Dark Knight Returns Batman go up for order somewhere. I'm like, I don't know, $75 for a figure. Don't know if I want to do that. I never spent that much before. Get it in hand, and it just like blew my mind. The quality of the fabric good, you know, the soft goods. That's probably the first soft goods figure I ever had. Was that Dark Knight Returns Batman. It just blew my mind.
It blew your mind. To me, it didn't blow. I like the cape, but it didn't blow my mind. Like,
really?
And I remember that Dark Knight, he was even available on Walmart. Like, you can get, I think, like one of the different variant editions on Walmart. One of my buddies had got him. And the Dark Knight Mezco was gifted to me. Like, my buddy had gotten like all 3 different versions, and then he was like, oh, I'm out of the game. And then he sent me the gray and black one. And I was just like, all right, it's okay. But all my other buddies were like, dude, this is awesome. And everyone's falling. I wasn't hooked, right? And then I got a gift card to, and one of my buddies is like, hey, you got to get the BVS Batman. And I got the Ben Affleck one. That one, man, that's when I fell head over heels, where I was like, okay, now I had to get them all. And that's where, like, I was like, looked at my wife, I'm like, we're gonna be collecting this now from here on out. But it was that BVS Batman that I think that's where Mezco really took, really leveled up their game from the Dark Knight Return. I think the material, you know, everything, just in the material, the cape, the paint application. A lot of people say that, you know, look at the Dark Knight Return, the material, it looks very, I don't know, it's on a different quality, I think.
Yeah, no, I may not hear you. I think the Dark Knight Returns, for me, the reason why it's so impactful, because I'm just such a huge fan of the comic. You know, that's one of my favorite Batman comics of all time. But yeah, when you look back in time, is that Mezco's best figure? No, but it was one of their first. You know, that's what started everything else. And I think because people got so into what they were offering with that and the potential of what they could offer into the future, that's what got me hooked. And to your point about toy photography, the soft goods, you know, I wasn't doing that before, but having that figure in hand, it just made me want to shoot it. So I'm like, okay, well, let me try my hand at it and see how I like it. And it ended up becoming a huge part of my collecting now is the toy photography side. So what do you think, Fabio? What was your first Mezco? What really like flip the switch for you?
Yeah, so I definitely did get the Dark Knight Returns when he came out, and he was like 65 back then. So
it was 65. Okay.
That was the base starting price or whatever. And I could definitely start to see sort of that paradigm shift a little bit. But that ended up being one of the first, probably one of the only Mezcos that I've like ever sold out of my collection, along with the Mutant Leader, because it was right around when the Ascending Knight was coming out. and I could see their design sensibility shifting towards the, you know, the more designer aspect, the more in-house designs for these characters, rather than like, you know, as it appeared in this thing, other than the live action stuff, which Batman and Superman from BVS completely hooked me for sure.
It's
but
great.
At that time I was also like, yeah, you know, Dark Knight Returns is nice, but there's been so many improvements. We got Ascending Knight here, and this is going to be like my core Batman in the display. And, you know, Superman was out, and Flash and Shazam and stuff. So that became sort of my display Batman. And then, I mean, that, not to say that it wasn't a good figure, but I could definitely see, you know, there was the prototype almost. It was the proof of concept for what could be for this line later on. And then when they started to shift to the more in-house designs, I was like, yes, this is what I like about this line, you know? So I did like it, but I think it was Batman versus Superman, Batman and Superman that like really got me. I remember seeing the Superman like randomly came back in stock on the website, and I just bought a second one because I loved it.
Yeah, I remember I missed out on that Superman. I was always so pissed off about it.
Yep, same here. I kept
it's one of
going
those
back
things
and forth.
Gorgeous.
Even nowadays, you can't find it for a decent price.
No, and probably still to this day, one of my like most like messed with. Like I've gone and gotten like custom heads for them that have more like Hot Toys style quality likenesses. I've just done more and more stuff with them than maybe compared to a lot of the other figures. Like they're some of my favorite to handle for sure. The texturing on the suit is on point. That, you know, again, the head sculpts weren't that good back then. But to see where they're at now, and having seen the Snyder Cut Batman at Comic-Con, like they have definitely made big improvements on that.
Yeah, I made sure to pre-order that JL Snyder Cut 3-pack that's coming out, so I can get at least a version of Cavill Soups. But yeah, having the black suit in the soft goods, I'm really excited for.
And then Judge Dredd was really good early on too, but you know, I'm not that big of a Judge Dredd guy, but I like, you know, how he displays and with the Lawmaster and everything.
Yeah.
I've gone back and gotten other versions since, but at this point we're at like, you know, I am basically a completist at this point. So to me, like its place in the history of the line has an inherent collectible value to me.
Yeah. I was going to ask, do you have every Mezco? Are you missing a few? It looks, I mean, when you look at your background,
your library.
I love your D-top because it's so nice and clean. You got everything all posed up. It looks like you really take care of your collection. And then on the other side, I'm sure, but if you're not watching these, you'd really watch the stream, guys, because you can see Fabio's, collection behind him. But it looks like you might have every single Mezco back there.
It only looks that way. No, since I let go of Batman Dark Knight Returns early on, that was one I had to go back and repurchase. But pretty much since then, I have gotten, you know, just about every release other than like the odd, you know, super rare Toy Fair one here and there. And then I only have one Dark Knight Returns that I've bought back since, but all of the variants and stuff, I don't go that deep into them. Those are like, again, just because they're place in the history of the line are like true grails at this point. So I'm good with just for now, you know, maybe if I make that big bag someday, I can go back and get some of these grails, but for now, I think I'm good with just the single original Dark Knight Returns, and then the single Mutant Leader, and then the SDCC Battle Damage 2-pack of the two. And then I think I'm good on there. But pretty much everything else, I do have. I'm missing the list of things that I'm missing is definitely shorter than of what I have. You know, the few odd ones here and there, like the wall from Frankenstein's monster, you know, the diorama element.
Yeah.
The White Shadow Assassin Gomez, the Blackout Toy Fair Punisher. I have the Shanghai Black Ascending Knight Batman, so I technically still need the Toy Fair one.
Oh, okay.
So it's just little things like that
that's cool.
From a completist standpoint, like yes, I have the figure or whatever, but I don't have the box that it comes in, whatever. If it's slightly different in such a way, which could just be the sticker on the front of it. And that's really getting into like deep, like down the iceberg of, you know, the Mezco collecting sphere.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you're on par with like Page, though, you know, the toy Page. For me, you guys seem like you have very similar collections because he's really deep too, as far as.
Oh, I don't think he'd like hearing that.
Oh no. Okay, maybe not. But I mean, when I think of guys that are like avid Mezco collectors and probably are close to being completionists, you two are what come to mind, I guess is what I'm trying to say there.
Is there a certain method to how you have the boxes, or like Is it from release year? Because I almost feel like Fabio's going to be like, you guys want to hear a story? And he'll reach back and he's just going to pull a book and be like, so 2015, you know, right here in this area.
There's a little bit of that.
There's a method to the madness.
I did a 2-part collection update. So if you want to see, you know, my full collection beyond just in my background, I did a one part that's just the boxes and one part that's the details.
Yeah.
So I do kind of get into that a little bit in that. And for the most part, it is like kind of based on like a little bit of release order and a little bit of like the box design. So like the original box flap design for like all together, and then kind of by color over here for like the Star Trek stuff into Space Ghost. And then we get into kind of like actual, you know, universe, I guess, from there.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that like color going on right here from like going into white into the color stuff and like where the logos are placed on the actual boxes. Just weird little like OCD things like that. And then my whole Rumble Society stuff is on top too that you can't see right now. But yeah, there's definitely a method to it, and it's definitely
cool.
madness.
Yeah, it's good to see, like, because I have a similar setup. I keep like all my DC stuff on one side, and then I have like a handful. And I'm like, man, they need to make more Marvel stuff. So then I had to create a different system where it was either like, from release date or variants together. Yeah, and then, you know, keeping the tints separately, because I really like the lunchbox tints that they do. So I have them up here somewhere in front of me on a different shelf where, you know, it's just, I think that adds another level to displaying purpose of it. Like I have the figures in my DTOF that Mario broke, so be careful with those DTOFs back there. But the box art and everything, I can display the tins separately, and then all the boxes just similar to how you have your setup.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of that with like the pins down here.
Yeah,
like,
those are very cool.
One row down here, and then I have like all the movie stuff on the very bottom.
Yeah.
Any of like the oversized boxes are kind of in this middle right here. This is so hard to point.
Yeah, you got, and you know, like how unique is that Popeye tin? You know, it's like, I love that stuff.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, there was a point where I was trying to make everything like super symmetrical, but at this point, like I already just bought this third case like this year, and it's already full. So I'm at the point where I need like the mini billies that fit in between to like fill the corner and stuff like that. It's wild, man. And I already have the whole overflow billy as well for stuff that I need to put into DTOFs. But DTOFs went up to like $100 this year, so that's gonna make it a little more difficult to do that. I might as well just get like a store case with like the big sliding door and everything. I don't even know what to do anymore.
Yeah, that's funny.
Well, I mean, outside of collecting it, and I know, you know, this is one thing I think you do that I really appreciate is you do Mezco delay updates. So, you know, you do a video about it a lot of the times where you're talking about your thoughts, and then you also post, you know, for people if they're curious to understand what Mezcos are being delayed. And that's something that you don't have to do, but it seems like you do it out of your own, maybe you're just trying to track it. You're like, hey, I think everybody else might would, you know, appreciate this. Let me start posting about it.
But, it's probably something I shouldn't do because people feel I might be stepping on toes or whatever, but I do it more as like a visual aid. So I have something to talk about on my streams because what I do is talking. So it's easier for me to have that as a visual aid. And then from there, I kind of started posting it here and there on my Instagram. And I guess it got me into a little bit of trouble because whatever. So I mostly keep it out of Instagram. I keep it mostly on like Reddit to like people who aren't in the main, I guess, sort of like communities for Mezco, because it is pretty niche still. I mean, this is like a niche within a niche. So I'm happy that I've found the audience that I've found, and I've got, you know, some great, very dedicated, loyal viewers, and I love them so much. And more than anything, it was just as a way to reach out to people or to get this information out to people who aren't, you know, in Facebook. I'm hardly in Facebook at all. I have to be because I'm one of the admins for the ACBA Facebook group. So I do a little bit of that in there, but, you know, I don't, and for the buy sell trade groups and stuff like that. But for like the social media aspect of it, I like muted all of my like high school friends, all my family. I don't want to see posts on Facebook that aren't like toy related, you know? So it's the same kind of thing for people who don't have Facebook at all, who are just maybe on Reddit or maybe only on Discord or whatever. And I just wanted that one graphic put up that I went through the trouble of compiling and finding assets for and combing the website myself to do, you know, to pull everything. And it was mostly born out of it being like a visual aid for my stream so I could talk about it, and then I would subsequently post it.
And really a lot of, like, I appreciate any work that anyone feels and puts their passion between it. Because I think Mezco, it is such a small niche, and us collectors, those that really are hardcore Mezco collectors, we collect it for a reason. And I think we all have that similar passion where we just love the line, whether it's Rumble Society or DC or Marvel, like we just love. But there's so many freaking pre-orders, I can't tell one from the other. Like I totally forget. So when I see those type of posts where it's like, hey, here, this is, and I'm like, oh snap, did I get Constantine? I'm like, oh yeah, I got 2 of them. Or did I get this? And I'm like, all right, I can just see your post. I'm like, all right, cool. Like I'm still waiting, like whatever. It's out of sight, out of mind. I totally forget about it. It's that moment when the PO goes up and I just click. I don't even look at all the pictures. I just make sure I secure it.
Exactly.
And then I forget about it. So a lot of times I'm like, oh damn, I still got the good stuff coming in. And I think that's the part that I love about the collecting community. It's like, just, it's so easy to get into the circle of just negativity where we're complaining about delays, we're complaining about quality or the pricing, or there's so much. But it's, once you get in hand like this, the Wolverine that just came out, I mean, it's a beautiful figure. And to me, I'm like, I'm gonna enjoy this as much as I can, because I see the list of other Mezco figures coming down the pipeline. I can just wait. Like I am not in a rush, not whatsoever.
It's like we learned nothing from Conan, which got super delayed for a long time, and then it came out at the end of last year, and it made so many top of 2021 lists. You know, like I as much as I like to, you know, speak about it ironically on my channel and on this last stream I did on Monday, like overall, I actually don't care when things get delayed. I'm like kind of cool with it, because it's nice to not get hit with expensive pre-orders or have to finish paying off everything that's not included in the deposit and everything. And it's like, okay, cool. I got a little fun money for the next couple months until this thing actually hits. And another reason why I do sort of like the Mezco collecting cycle is there is an element of like mystery to it. There's a little bit of that, like that hype building that happens in between all these releases. And that's why I love Rumble Society too, is the way they put out, you know, the promotional material. It has like a QR code that you follow that takes you to the dates of the next Slugfest drop. All that stuff is really interesting to me. And that's kind of what inspired me to start the channel too, is at the time, this was like tail end of the pandemic, I want to say, when we were still kind of in lockdown. Work wasn't, you know, quite at the point that it was. So I decided to really focus on the channel, learn graphic design for 6 months, and like come correct when I decided to relaunch, you know, making videos in a more regular basis and start to do the live streams and stuff. And at the time, there was a documentary that came out on HBO Max called Into the Storm. It was about the like the QAnon movement and how that snowballed and led into the January 6th insurrection and all that stuff. And there was a section of it that was about QTubers, which are people that do YouTube videos talking about, documenting, reacting these Q drops, you know, the QAnon drops that, you know, that they would drop on 4chan and 8chan and those weird, like, you know, image boards and stuff for like the deep, dark depths of the internet. And to me, there was like a lot of parallels between that and what Mezco does with their drops and everything. So I thought it would just be a fun spin to have a channel that was basically like being a QTuber, but for Mezco. And I thought that was a fun spin. So I always like to say that my show is somewhere between Alex Jones InfoWars meets Jimmy Kimmel. You know, that is sort of, it is me. I'm not playing a character, you know, but it is that elevated version of me that's on the streams that likes to follow the conspiracy behind all these Mezco drops. And to me, that's just a fun, interesting spin on it. So when it came time to like doing the channel, that was some of the inspiration that went into it. And I, you know, again, it's a weird niche within a niche. So I just wanted to find a fun spin to it that wasn't just me talking about the stuff that I got, you know?
No,
so like for future episodes, we may have to either have your decoder ring or the cog to know what Fabio's talking about, or like, wait, hold on, he said, and then I'm there with my ring.
Exactly. Anything, anything that might be misconstrued as me maybe just misspeaking or mispronunciating a word, it could actually just be a secret Slugfest code.
I'm like, you heard it here first, folks. He's dropping codes,
trying to create some controversy.
You know, at the end of the day, I'm just asking questions. You know, I don't whatever. I'm just asking questions. You know. No, I think that's just such a fun thing, and as I come from a comedy writing background, so to me that's just a fun point of view to portray.
No, you come across as very genuine in your streams. You can tell these are things you're genuinely interested in, either digging into or talking about, or maybe getting some feedback from some people in your lives. You know, for anybody that hasn't checked out Fabster on YouTube, make sure to go check him out and subscribe. He's got some really great content. You've been on there for a long time. I know you've had your, I think, account since what, 2009 or so?
Yeah.
YouTube account.
I started YouTube in general just through ACBA, through doing,
Right.
displays and a little bit of vlogging here and there, but mostly like my tournament displays that we would do for like the world tournaments. So I did build up like a small following through that, just from other display artists and everything. But it's really been in like the last year, I would say, where I've like, really kind of found my groove with YouTube. Maybe, year and a half or so, basically since lockdown ended.
Yeah. And, that's, you just tapped on another thing I want to talk about. You're also part of the ACBA podcast, which has been around for a very long time. One of the original, I think, streams that a lot of us can remember about a group of collectors talking about the community.
Yep.
And you guys have been around. You created a cult following with ACBA. It's something I still tag in my toy photos, articulated comic book art. Tell us just a little bit about how you got involved there and, where did that start?
It was basically when I was rediscovering collecting. I was getting back into Marvel Legends after high school, and I was looking up reviews, for versions of figures that I was looking to get. And number one person at the time, and probably still, Artemis Prime. And at the end of his videos, he would do the ACBA stinger. He would plug ACBA. And then I found out about the group. I found out that there's this whole community. And this was even like pre-Instagram. This was just basically on Facebook. And I found out about that and decided to get involved. I really gravitated to just the way the brand had developed. Even at that point, they were already, 5 or so years deep. And I became a fan because it was like, oh man, this is like the way I would have done this if I had this idea first. But I'm not like, gonna go and do my own thing and copy that. I was like, no, let me get in on the ground level of what these guys are doing, because I think it's really cool. Ended up becoming really good friends with Boog. He and I are like, our birthdays are like 2 days apart or something. So we vibe in a lot of ways, despite, the age difference or whatever. And he's just a cool dude. And I really just became a fan of the way that they were doing things, decided to get involved. Eventually, just through posting and through being a fan of the brand, they asked me to come on as one of the admins to run the Facebook group. And we would just do like meetups here in SoCal. And I got to meet a couple of the other admins and some of the other guys heavily involved. And then through having talked with Rectangular, Todd Ortiz, we did like a video. He produced a couple of videos for his channel that was interviewing people at these meetups, and I was one of them. And then after that interview, he just like recommended my name up to Boog and stuff, who I already knew at the time, but behind the scenes, they were already talking about starting a podcast, because that was kind of starting to become a thing at the time. And he recommended that I just be one of the personalities on it. And I was like honored, absolutely that they would ask me to do that. And obviously, all I'm good at is talking about things I'm passionate about. So it definitely was a validating thing. I felt very seen by that. And we were, in fact, probably one of the first action figure related toy podcasts on YouTube. And there were still like a few other like audio podcasts at the time that were small and stuff. And I remember getting criticism when we started ACBA podcast on YouTube, being like, well, who are these guys? Who wants to see a video podcast? Nobody wants to see these people's faces. Like, who cares, right? You might, Josh, you might remember the Dreadnought. They would talk mad crap about that, and lo and behold, it just became another blueprint that people would follow. In terms of ACBA had already started the blueprint for the toy group, the toy photography community, and everything, having come out of like being the original Marvel Legends collectors community, and it just. We took a big hiatus for a couple of years, while I think a few people were dealing with some stuff, availability wasn't all there. And then by the time we came back with the era of the podcast that we're at right now, like so many of these toy streams had popped up, and look at that, we're seeing our faces and people actually like it. It's from a production standpoint, it's definitely a better way to connect with an audience, is to have your face in it and see the expression, see your backgrounds, and the pandemic also was big on that, because suddenly everybody had to invest in a nice video and audio setup and decided to put a background to it and all that stuff. So it's all kind of snowballed. And I think ACBA has done a good job of really like staying with those trends and in a lot of ways, being the blueprint for what a lot of other people are doing, which is fine. That's totally cool. Nobody's here calling foul because, hey, you guys are copying us. Like, whatever, there's room for everybody,
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think you guys helped create that foundation and to make it more of a common, it's more of like, I'm not as afraid to do it because these guys are doing it. It's successful and it's interesting, and that's something that maybe I didn't think about the community might want. But I think that's helped create the community as far as discovery. I discovered a lot through that podcast and other people. You guys are calling attention to other people, other lines, your thoughts on collecting. And I think that's helped build the community. I think, we all kind of benefit from having more content out there. And like what you talked about, video podcasts, it seemed so uncommon, just a little bit ago, a few years ago, to have a video podcast. Like you said, audio podcast. I just want to listen to the audio. But the video side, I think, creates a whole different level of engagement. Engagement is so important with your audience. And I think that's something you're really good about with your own podcast as well, is that you get the chat involved, you're highlighting comments. They get to kind of see your reaction. You're kind of joking with them, like you said, you get to see your collection. Like, okay, Fabio says he collects Mezco, but does he really? And then you see him on the stream, like, okay, yeah, he's a huge Mezco collector.
This is a green screen, actually.
Yeah.
He backs up what he's saying.
He's a Mezco scholar.
Yeah.
I like to call myself an archivist because I got the archive.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, the archive. Just reach back, and all I see is like him in a Doctor Strange type of environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the library of Camartage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you guys kind of helped pave the way for what we have today, I think, so you got to respect that. You got to respect the foundation and the work that you guys put in to make it possible. And you guys are still going, like how many episodes are you into now on ACBA?
Like 205 now,
That's
I think.
Insane.
And that was, we continued the numbers after we came back. We could have been at over 400 if we hadn't taken that break,
Yeah.
And then that's just another great thing about ACBA is just how much, not just on the podcast and content production foundation that we've had, but like how much it shaped the actual industry. It's wild to see Hasbro actually start to do more kind of ACBA style photography instead of just the renders and all that stuff. Back then where it was just the picture of the figures and that's it. But to see the Power Rangers brand just do full backgrounds and everything, and obviously ACBA took cues from that as far as like the old G.I. Joe commercials and everything. So to see it all sort of build upon itself, and these companies make product with the sensibility that people are going to use this for photography, not just to stand on a shelf, is really cool and really interesting. And they definitely, have ears in the community to see that that's a trend and see that that's what people are trying to get out of collecting nowadays.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think when Mezco started using the photos that The Amazing would create, that for me was a huge selling point for a lot of their figures. Because not only, The Amazing is one of the first guys I discovered doing toy photography and ACBA style and, reviewing. And so to your point, seeing Mezco recognize his talent and what he's able to bring to the brand and help spread the word is so smart. And you see more and more companies doing that. But yeah, I totally agree. Like having that exposure, having podcasts like ACBA, just calling attention to the brand and really showing people like, hey, there's a huge community of collectors here. Why not utilize that to help push sales of the figures and help promote and create, marketing material and that kind of stuff. So I think it's really it's like you said, it's changed the landscape. And it's something that I hope and I feel like will continue to be a part of the community and probably grow. You see Mezco nowadays tapping people in the community like, hey, do you want to do some shots? You're like, we'll send you a figure.
Yep.
Or, and it's really cool to see that. And I hope it's something that continues. 'Cause I think that for me personally, it helps sell the figures for me. The fact that they are so in tune with the community. And I think people forget that. They get so wrapped up in these delays and, trying to find a reason to be upset with something. And, like to your point, I don't get upset when they have a delay because I'm like, okay, I can save that $200 for something else, But just remember, they're also trying to really push the community and get people involved as well. Don't just focus on the negative, focus on all the good things they've brought to the community as well. And the fact that we do have all these soft goods figures now, I think it's easy to get lost in the negative, but remember that they brought a lot of positive as well. Kind of went on a weird tangent there, but
no, for sure. And the opposite point is also true, where when something is on time and it actually starts to ship, people get all like, whoa, wait, I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
No.
What the hell?
Wolverine.
Yeah. Why do they got to charge me right now? I don't have the money for this. Well,
Exactly.
did you want a delay or do you want
Yeah.
a figure? I mean,
Yeah.
you can't have both.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
To me,
And
it's
then
all. I don't really get upset about things like that. I always look for the comedy. I always look for what is fun, what is funny about this thing. You know.
Right. No, that's cool, man. I really appreciate it. Like I said, you guys, if you're listening and you haven't checked out Fabster on YouTube, please go check him out. He does great content. Make sure to check out the ACBA podcast as well. I know you're on Instagram where you do post about, your new episodes. You used to do some toy photography, maybe it's not as much. You kind of dabble in that, right?
Yeah, that's something I really, really would love to get back to is and as a way to sort of raise my stock with maybe Mezco wanting to send me something to photograph.
Right.
Just really want to get back more into photography. But I think because I've cut my teeth in that ACBA community for so long and I've seen so many great display artists, great photographers, I'm like the harshest critic to myself where I won't even get back into it unless I can get a full photography setup. I don't got the room for it right now, but I'd love to have a setup like Jason B. Michael has, where I've got like all the lights, like Johnny, like Sergeant Bananas, even like Bullock, who does such great, like tangible, subtly posed work where, I do a little bit of it here and there for like my videos and stuff. But I think because the YouTube has taken more of a focus, I want to, when I do come back to photography, I've got, so many ideas that are always floating around. And as someone who, again, works in production, I see all of these techniques at 1-to-1 scale that I want to bring down to 112 that, if I can't come correct, I won't come at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's good.
But I do hope to. Hopefully, short-term goal is definitely to get back into photography way more regularly.
I'll say, but most of us know that if you know Fabster, you know that he is very limited on time. I think you were trending for a while. You almost went viral within the toy community with your scene in The Mandalorian. And my whole feed was, and I was like, oh, snap, did I miss something? I had to go watch it. I'm like, yep, there's the guy that kidnapped me and the fellow enablers. When I finally had the chance to meet this guy, he kidnapped me, Kevin, Mario, and Mike and threw us all in his car and showed us around to different shops. So that was really freaking cool.
Listen, all I did was show you that I had candy in the car, and you guys went in.
He laid out the candy from like the decon to his car, and Mario was just like, "Ooh, piece of candy!" Ooh, and I was like, "Mario, where are you going?" Like, and that's it. Got us all in the trunk.
You followed him in.
And I followed him in, and then Mike was on my back, and Kevin was just trying to catch up with us. So
that was great. That was my first time meeting Kevin. That was, I probably met you maybe at like Frankenstein before that, but definitely my first time meeting like the Enablers for sure. Yeah. And that was great. Still big fan of their content, big friends with them to this day, and it's just great that there's these little like sub communities within this larger toy community as well, and that we're all commingling, hanging out. There's not. Early on, there was just so much competition. It felt like everybody was was really trying to like cut each other's throats and really
spotlight.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's another thing that to brag more about ACBA. I think that's another thing that set them apart is we just always been doing our own thing. Never really cared too much about what other people are doing, and keep setting trends in that way.
How did it feel like just getting that much support or being on the Mandalorian set, like seeing that so many collectors were like, yeah, that's freaking awesome.
Man, that's
amazing, dude.
I had to sit on that for so many months. It was awesome. Like the podcast guys knew for sure because I'd told them. And it was actually Book of Boba Fett. So
Book of Boba Fett, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. And I got confused too because working the days on those show, I worked on that show for like 2 months. Different days, maybe like 1 or 2, 3 days per week over the course of 2 months or so. And my first few days on it was in the scenes with Mando. So I also thought I was on Mandalorian until like my last month working on the show, and like all the crew gear started coming in, and it's got Book of Boba Fett gear. And if I couldn't tell before, I definitely knew then. And I had already told the podcast guys like, hey, I'm going to be on Mandalorian. Yeah. And I felt like I might have spoiled Book of Boba Fett a little bit for them to say that I was with Mando and I was actually on Book of Boba Fett. But no, that was crazy. That was the single biggest like confluence of my two worlds coming together. Just I've been in production for a few years now and been in the toy game for even longer than that. To just have those two worlds combined and have so many people like genuinely be excited and happy for me was truly cool. Even like Dan Yoon from the Hasbro Marvel Legends team talked to me at San Diego and was like, hey man, like that's awesome. Like really proud of you. That's so cool.
That was freaking awesome, dude.
Not everybody can say that, I don't know anybody else that can say that, you know?
And it wasn't like he was like, no, that was me, and he had his mask on. Like, no, it was
We
your
got to,
face. So yeah. It's like, I'm that stormtrooper, that short one right there. That's me. It's like, yeah, that could be anybody.
Yeah, I didn't know that you were an actor prior to learning about you being in the show. So I remember when I saw people sharing their story, I'm like, is this like a Photoshop? Like, I don't understand. Like, there's no way he's part of the show. And then you start, I watched the show. I'm like, holy shit, that's Fabio right there. And you're in a few different scenes, right?
I was in, I think maybe like 4 episodes total, but definitely like that one episode was maybe 5 episodes even. It was a lot. And
you guys are kind of like walking off the ship or something.
Cool.
You raise
Yeah. There was one episode where I show up multiple times in like 3 different outfits. Like,
oh wow.
So the same episode, so many of these scenes were shot like weeks and weeks apart. It's crazy to see how it all came together.
Yeah. That's really cool.
And I only get to see a very small slice of it. So it was cool to actually watch the full episode and get like the entire context for it. And I have like that personal like notch to check off where I've now been in 2 different productions where I've been in an episode with both Stephen Root, who's one of my favorite character actors of all time, Bill Dauterive on King of the Hill. He's, the shy dude with the wife or whatever on Dodgeball. One of my favorite character actors. That's my second production that I was in an episode of with him, because I also worked on Perry Mason season 1.
Oh, nice. I love that show.
That was really cool. He was like the not evil, he's just the prosecuting attorney or whatever on that show. And then also Danny Trejo was on that same episode with me. And I had also worked on American Horror Stories where he was like the evil Santa Claus or whatever. So to me, it was like, oh, wow, I've been in an episode with both like Danny Trejo and Stephen Root 2 completely separate times. And that's just a cool little like achievement unlocked kind of thing for me.
For sure.
And having been directed by Robert Rodriguez, too, who's one of my all-time favorite filmmakers as well, with Once Upon a Time in Mexico, Desperado, the El Mariachi trilogy, all that stuff, man. Spy Kids, for gosh sake.
Yeah.
And it's gotta be one of those moments.
They just finished shooting the new Spy Kids.
They did, yeah. And his son is apparently like co-writer, co-producer.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'm sure it's one of those moments where you kind of grow up with these idols, and I'm sure it's something you've wanted to do for a long time. Obviously, you're pursuing a career in it, but you're on set, you're recording, you're just pinching yourself. It's like, is this reality? Like, am I really doing this right now?
Yeah.
Was that like pretty surreal for you?
Yeah, that's another reason why Book of Boba Fett was one of my favorite all-time is my favorite all-time productions, is because I got to work in the volume, like the big like LED projected background like set, and it was just thousands of LED screens projecting this digital background. And it's almost like one of those have you ever seen like those sidewalk chalk drawings where like if you look at it from a certain perspective it looks like I don't know, like a chasm in the ground or something.
Right.
It's like that but digital, so wherever the camera's looking it's creating that background so that from the camera's perspective it looks like the background, but when the camera starts moving the digital background starts moving along with it, so it always stays in frame. So we're there on the like spaceport or whatever, and we're walking along and the whole background is like moving behind us. It's so cool. Crazy surreal.
Yeah, I watched if you guys want to learn more about what he's talking about, check out Light and Magic on Disney Plus, because they actually talk about Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and how that has really changed the industry. Because a lot of the times, and I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but they would film scenes and then add in effects later, right? Like backgrounds and effects. What that allows you to do is record with the effects and the practical at the same time, right? So you're kind of blending it. You can get the final shot as you're recording.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all, going back to ACBA, it's all tangible in-camera stuff, which really takes it to that next level. And I think that's another cool thing about this new era of Star Wars. Say what you will about the new era of, Disney Star Wars and stuff, but pretty much everybody working on it is a huge Star Wars nerd. So they grew up with the original trilogy. They grew up with the prequels, and the originals were so practical. The prequels were so digital. And this is just that perfect marriage of the two, where a lot of like the outdoor scenes on like Tatooine and stuff that we did were actually like physical sets, the houses, the sand, everything there is real. But then like the deep background is like a blue screen to create like the horizon and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
So
incredible.
It's a crazy perfect blend of the two, and everybody working on it. Like I got to see the giant bantha that
Oh wow, that's awesome.
that Boba
So
Fett
cool.
comes riding in
Yeah.
on, you know?
Yeah.
And that's like a real, you know, giant animatronic thing on like a dolly track with the head moving and multiple animators on it. There's a dude whose entire job was to come up and like spray the eyes so it looks like it's got like
Yeah.
the tears and everything.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's
Wow.
insane, man. Like
That's incredible.
absolutely one of my favorite productions of all time.
Yeah, I
Wow.
hope they continue that where they have the blend of the practical with CGI, because anything that's fully CGI, I just have a hard time getting into, you know, because it's like, oh, well, none of this is tangible. I know it's all fake. But
Yeah.
the great thing that I think Disney is doing and they continue to do is having a blend of both to really make that believable. And you see that in toy photography, like you said, people that use digiramas and practical effects, they're kind of do the exact same thing
Exactly.
as you guys were doing on at Disney. So that's cool, man. I mean, kudos to you. That's huge, working with Disney like that. And
Yeah, man.
you know, you don't have to tell us because I know you got NDAs that you signed, but you have some future projects in the work that we can look out for.
And even on Star Wars, just like another personal thing to have checked off was like having been directed by Bryce Dallas Howard is insane.
That's
like,
insane.
So cool.
So
I
cool.
do have one production that I'm very excited about that should be coming out at the end of the year. And I can't say much. It didn't even have a title, to be honest, so I couldn't even tell you. It was literally untitled. But I got to work with, like, share scenes and do bits with some of my, like, comedy icons. One in particular who grew up with, you know, so many of his movies, and to have, you know, had the confidence instilled in me where I can go up and interact with him. And it was truly awesome. I can't wait for that one to come out. I'll definitely, you know, have to plug
let me get my decoder ring. Hold on.
Yeah, Untitled is the
there you go.
You seem like, you know, a humble guy where, you know, you don't want to talk about it too much or toot your own horn, but I think that's one of those moments that when it does come out, please do that so that we can all discover it and check it out. And, you know, I think it's awesome, man. It's really cool. And I really liked those scenes with you in Book of Boba Fett. And you know, it's just knowing that somebody in the community is in that show makes me appreciate it anymore. I'm like, it's amazing. It's really cool, dude. It's really cool.
I don't collect anything from Star Wars in terms of merch and toys and everything. I just collect the memories of having worked on it and just all that stuff. That's enough for me, you know. That would have to be all I collect. When
you're like 70 years old and you got kids that are still talking about Star Wars, but like, guess what? I was on an episode of Book of Boba Fett back in 2021.
It's all a part of my plot to achieve immortality, and it's working. No, it really is, like, truly, like, humbling, because I really am just a fan of movies, of television. I grew up with so much. I was raised by television, basically.
Me too,
man.
Me too.
I just, you know, have such a love for it, and I'm so thankful that I've been able to do as little as it is, because to be honest, I'm just kind of getting started, you know. So
that's awesome.
that reaction from the toy community and that combining of these two worlds was like just crazy cool. Yeah,
I'm excited for your future, man. I can't wait to see what else you do. So anybody that hasn't watched Book of Boba Fett, if you want to see Fabster in Book of Boba Fett, go check it out. Really, really cool, man. But yeah, I mean, you're one of those guys. I feel like I could just continue to talk to you. Like if I met you in real life, I'd be like, "Hey, let me go buy you a beer and let's go hang out." Because
dude, I would love that.
Yeah,
one beer would turn into 6 very quickly.
Yeah,
I saw you're at SDCC. I didn't go this year. I really regretted not going. Maybe next year I can go so we can meet up in person.
Dude, for sure.
Great. Yeah,
that is my single favorite experience from SDCC. Like looking at all the toys is great. Seeing all the reveals and the panels, super cool. But like I'm there for the people, you know. It's so great to have interactions with everybody in this community in person that it's wild. Yeah,
for sure. That's the best part of it. Like, yeah, you can get the toys at home. You know, you don't have to go to get the toys, but what you can't get at home is the personal experiences with people in the community. I know Prime, you know, you went to Designer Con and got to do that too, but that just takes it to a whole nother level. You know, like the toys are one thing, but being able to mix and, you know, kind of talk to these people that I've followed for so long and know like, hey, these are just normal people too. And we all have the same kind of things. And I've got friends in the toy community that I don't have in my personal life because, you know, I can't relate to them on that level.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
My normie friends, I call them.
Yeah. The normies. Exactly. Yeah. So like I said before we get into the Dirty Dozen, if you guys want to check out Fabster's content, go follow him on YouTube. He's got a really great YouTube channel. He's also on the ACBA podcast. I'm sure a lot of you have already seen him on there. So I'm just telling you guys what you already know. You can follow him on Instagram at Fabster360. And you're also on Twitter at Colonel Crackers. I didn't realize that was your username. I think I used to follow you on Instagram.
Yeah.
I don't know if you still have that. You don't have that account anymore.
I changed it. I just, that's part of my coming back and just having it be like a little bit more me, you know, not my Xbox Live gamer tag from 2005.
It's funny how it starts, right? Like,
yeah,
always the Xbox Live game. Oh, I'll just take that into my social media.
Yeah, I didn't want to be the Trooper 23 like I used to be also. So
all right, we're gonna get to
again just that engagement, you know, like it's me.
Yeah.
My friends call me Fabster, like actually in real life, or Fobs or whatever. So same kind of thing. I just wanted that more personal relationship with this community.
Absolutely. Yeah. So like I said, go check them out. But we're not going to do the Dirty Dozen, which we're going to give you 12 rapid fire rounds of different toy companies or things in the toy community. You just tell us the first thing that comes to your mind. If you have more to say, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, go ahead.
All right, let's get started.
Let's get dirty.
First one. Mythic Legions.
Oh, God. I really love Mythic Legions. I love Four Horsemen in general. It is probably the single line I would collect if I wasn't collecting Mezco. Like, I'm such a huge fan of high fantasy, of sword and sorcery. Like, huge fan. Like, it's such heavy metal imagery. Like, it is me, but it's just so deep. There's so much to it now that if I had gotten in on it on the ground level like I did with Mezco, I probably would still only be collecting that. It's a beautiful line. I'm too much of a completist. I can't allow myself to even dip a toe in because I just won't be able to do everything.
Yeah, I resisted it for a long time, and then I got into it. And to your point, I've had to shift the focus now to make room and to ensure that I can continue collecting it. But
yeah,
really
I got my first ones at DesignerCon 2019 pre-pandemic, and that started a small rabbit hole. And I had to let them go, unfortunately, because I could see myself being way too deep into it.
Yeah, I respect the focus, though. It's hard to keep that.
God, I just want like an elf, like a dwarven tavern diorama so badly, but I can't do it. I'm watching the Rings of Power right now, and I'm just like, oh God, to be a Mythic Legions collector would be so tight.
I have 3, and I haven't been able to open them because I was like, if I do, this is going to be a slippery slope. So they're just sitting there.
Send those to me. I'll take them.
All right, next one is imports.
I think they're good. I like them for sure. I just some of them can feel like, as like a mostly domestic collector, some of them just feel like very flimsy to me. Like there's a very there's a lightness to them that I really don't like much. You know, they pose great and everything, but I'm not out here pretending I'm Darius. Like I'm not that great at posing.
Yeah.
So the subtle posing is what I mostly excel in. And in my photography style, when I do it, I've shifted more towards like a cinematic thing. So crazy, you know, over the top poses don't really do as much for me as like good, like, you know, close up or more subtly posed stuff. So if I were like more into the posing aspect of the hobby, there's no question imports would be the way to go.
Yeah.
But there's just like a weird, like all the math X's that I have, the few SH figure arts I've had, there's just like a flimsiness to them. Not that they feel like they're going to break, but they just feel so light. You know, I'm not really into them.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like when I pose that new Wolverine, it feels really solid. And if I pose my Mofex Wolverine, like you said, it's I can pose a little bit more maybe, but it's not as solid of a pose.
Yeah. And it's all, any of the posing to me is also disguised with like the angle of the photography, you know? So
sure.
That's something I can get away with.
Yeah.
All right. Next one is Marvel Legends.
That's where it started for me, man. That was when I was just a kid buying toys. I fully became a real collector when Marvel Legends came around. Everything from the comics, everything from the bases that they came with, the superposability that was unheard of at that time. You know, it is the progenitor for everything that has come in the toy industry since. You know, huge shouts to everybody involved in that line: Jesse Falcon and Dave Vonner and Phil Ramirez and Dave Cortez. These dudes, they're household names to me because of how I grew up with this line. But it's in the same kind of way that it's just such a huge, huge universe now.
Yeah.
And I can't
Oh, yeah.
pretend that I know who every member of the Starjammers is. I don't really care that much. I'm cool with having just the core characters done really, really, really well. And, you know, I don't care too much about tertiary characters. So
Yeah.
having to get a full line of Marvel Legends, so maybe just to build a figure for, you know, 2 figures in the wave I don't care about. It's just not the model that I follow anymore.
Yeah. No.
You've evolved a little bit.
Yeah, and you know, to even go back to how I look at the difference between like Mezco stuff or other like premium 112 lines to domestic line or to retail lines, it's how people look at something like Marvel Legends to like the $10 Hasbro figures, like the ones that are meant for kids, you know.
Yeah.
That's like the visual difference and like mental difference to me now is how I look at Legends now.
All right, next one is Mattel.
You know, Mattel had some dark times for sure. I think recently they've really started to listen to their fans more. I think the WWE line, WWE Elites and Ultimates and all that stuff is probably one of the single like most robust, complete lines in all of action figures. It's wild. I had a time when I was first getting back into wrestling around like 2010, 2011, where I was like really getting into collecting the WWE stuff. And it's a great line. But again, it's just so much. Like I can't get into it. And
right,
for what they've done now with like Masters of the Universe, they're in a good spot for sure. Like they're both doing the nostalgia thing and then appealing to the modern collector with like the Masterverse stuff. You know, I think they're fine. They've definitely had to crawl out from under for a little while. I think they're back to a pretty good spot. All
right, this next one, one word, only one word.
Okay,
you'll see why. Mezco.
It's impossible.
Yeah, no, look, he's like
delays. I mean, I have nothing but words about Mezco. You know, it's just where it's what's shaped my current collecting philosophy. You know, I'm not mad about waiting for product when it's great. You know, when the end product is worth the wait, then I'm cool with it. You know,
I've said that before too. The delays suck. Yeah, delays suck. But when you get the product in hand, it always blows me away. You know, like, wow, okay, this is why I waited.
Yeah.
Like when I get a new Mezco, like I have to set my afternoon, my evening aside to open it and appreciate it and everything. It wasn't just like when I got my stuff out of storage and I had bought waves of Legends that I just put immediately into storage. And then when I finally got everything out, I got around to opening it. And it was just like one after the other, opening them and not even getting the chance to appreciate them. Whereas like every Mezco to me is like an experience, you know?
Yeah. Perfectly said right there. Opening up a Mezco is an experience. The Pink Skulls, to your point, the Rumble Society, they dropped it and then it was in our hands in a very, very short amount of time. And it's just it was such an overwhelming experience. You open it, it's a whole experience. And that's what I freaking love about it. They put so much time and effort and thought into like the packaging, like that's really the experience that they delivered. I opened it up and I'm like, oh, I got a whole stage. The accessories just freaking like, man, I was floored by that. And same thing with the Wolverine, the tin. Again, it's the experience that they're creating. That's man, you freaking like, you just blew my mind right now. That's crazy.
Seriously, hit it on the head for me because when I open Mezcos, a lot of that creates the inspiration for toy photography. I'm like, okay, now I'm opening it. I've got all these ideas. Let me go get it in front of the camera, you know? So I savor that experience for sure.
Yeah. And I'm holding back on one big experience right now because I have 3 sets of the Krieg 2-packs so far and then another Murder Hornet here that I'm waiting to do the big unboxing when I have the full army after we make our deal, Nate.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, next one is G.I. Joe Classified.
Oh man, I'm not a G.I. Joe guy at all, but I think it is actually Hasbro's best line right now. I think it really everything from the design of the figures, the modernization, you know, I go for that sort of more designer sensibility now. So I like that they aren't just one-to-one recreations of the cartoon or the vintage toys. I like that they've modernized the designs. I like the accessories, like the loadouts, the character selection. Cobra is like one of the all-time great evil villain factions. Like I love their imagery and everything. And again, it's just one of those things that I wish I could do because I would have to do it all, you know?
Yeah.
there's just so much to it and just so cool. So I'm kind of glad I don't have the nostalgia for that to like push me over the edge for it. But from a just the figures standpoint, it's probably Hasbro's best right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Really nice.
Next one. Do you have a mystery line, a little dirty secret that nobody knows about? A line you collect, or you're tempted to collect, a line that you love to hate?
I mean, as much as I talk about, you know, nostalgia baiting being a predatory tactic, like I like what Reaction does, what Super 7 is doing with the Reaction line, because they aren't pretending to be anything else. You know, I've got a few that I've bought, a few that were gifted to me, and it does have that appeal of like it's merchandise from a property that usually doesn't have merchandise, you know, it doesn't have much merchandise. But to me, they're just nice little like posters, basically, because I go for not just the little figure. I don't really open them. So to me, it's the art, you know, the representation of whatever that figure is of in a way you can hang it, that you can look at. I've got some of their in-house stuff, like the worst. I think to really condense this even further, I think the worst is a really, really tight designer in-house line from Super 7 that I will be getting like the ultimates of when they come out as well.
Oh yeah. I'm really excited for those ultimates. And to your point about the nostalgia, like the Super 7 Roger Rabbit figures, the Reaction ones, I don't really collect Reaction, but just to have the card art, you know, I have such a love for that movie. I'm like really tempted to get it just for that reason, because like you said, they're beautiful display pieces.
Exactly. And it was I kind of got into Reaction too, just because I was already doing like Mezco 5 points for the same reason, like for the card art to sort of complement the 112 figure. I got the Space Ghost 5 points behind the 112 Space Ghost, the Popeye behind Popeye, you know, so all that stuff, I think, you know, just adds to the overall display rather than, you know, just getting into it for the individual pieces.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I love having the Reaction stuff, like the Ghost or the Papa Emeritus from Ghost. I love having Rob Halford from Reaction displayed next to my guitar, and I love shredding for an hour and just looking at these icons of mine in action figure form with some really nice card art. You know, it's part of the display of my like little jam session.
And being able to blend those two passions together.
Yeah.
Well, he actually ended up killing two birds with one stone. Not only did he give us his mystery line, he guessed the very next slide, which was Super 7.
Super 7.
Got it.
Nice.
He got it.
It's really only been in the last year that I've gotten into them, not just entirely for personal reasons, but because I really am a fan of them as a company, the way they communicate with their fans, the way they communicate with their customers, and are really like, you know, knowing the people who work there, they're huge fans of the properties that they each work on. So you can see that love put into the product as well. And I'm a small company, designer driven. I think they're one of the best doing it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I had the pleasure of like spending time with Yoko and Kyle during DCon, and that was my first time meeting them. And man, getting a chance to open up the Thundercats and some of those TMNT, like it just blew my mind. I was already on board with the Thunder Tank, but that nostalgia, and once I had them in hand, man, I'm just like, this year I've been all in on Super 7, which to your point, I've had to hold back. Some of it is like, it's hitting that nostalgia. I'm like, man, I want to, and it's the completest to me. I'm like, I want to get all the Simpsons. And I'm like, nope, I just got to pick and choose. And when I pick and choose, that's really hard. Because you know, I can't do that. I don't know. It's the OCD. I start having an internal battle within myself where I'm like, I got to get them all. And it's tough.
I'm 100% in on all of their heavy metal stuff. I got King Diamond. I got Papa. I'm getting the Papa 2 when he hits. I pre-ordered Lemmy from Motorhead and the Minotaur from Slayer Show No Mercy. I'm in for all of it, man. And just from having talked with Kyle, like there's going to be plenty coming that'll keep me very happy on that regard.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
All right. Next one is Storm Collectibles.
I got into them a little bit. I do like what they do. They're just really big. Like if I was only collecting Storm, it wouldn't bother me. Right. But you know, if I'm trying to do some kind of Marvel versus Capcom thing with like my Mezcos versus Storm, it just wouldn't work. But I almost got into their Mortal Kombat line, and I'm very glad I didn't, because it's crazy.
Yeah. All right. Next one. It's perfect. NECA.
Oh, my ex.
Yeah.
Not really. I do still really like them. I like all of the talent involved there. I think they've created one of the most robust lines of all time with the Toon Turtle stuff. God, that line just goes so deep. And
deep, way deeper than I ever thought they would go.
insane, dude. Like that display at San Diego was like,
Yeah.
it was a litmus test for how big of a TMNT fan are you if you could name all these crazy
sure.
like tertiary
Seriously.
characters, you know?
Yeah, just when you think you're done with, you know, cartoon TMNT from NECA, and then they show all that, you're like, wow, okay, well, they have figures here that I never thought I'd see.
Mm-hmm. And done so well. So many great accessories, like the sets, like you know, the street scene that they did. They're doing the sewer dial that might, you know, be able to attach to the street scene, the party wagon, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm such a huge fan of that. And I didn't grow up with the cartoon necessarily. I'm an 03 Turtles guy, so I'm safe in the Turtles regard. You know, at least until the Mezco one hits.
Yeah.
But so that stuff, you know, I'm safe on. But man, like I can respect just how much love they put into that, into any of their lines, really. And I was so big into Predator and Alien and any other 80s action movie stuff that, you know, that was probably way tougher to let go of than a lot of other stuff. I still have like a couple Terminators and Dutches from Predator here and there, just as a Schwarzenegger guy. But when they have Angus, some of my favorite reveals, you know, Mezco barely had any reveals, to be honest, like physically there at the show. So probably my favorite thing that I saw at San Diego was Angus Young and Bon Scott from ACDC. Again, coming from a music background too, like I only listen to ACDC Bon Scott era stuff. I really don't like anything post Back in Black. You know, Back in Black's a great album for sure, but everything after that, you know, I kind of start to fall off. If you're talking High Voltage, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, Powerage, into If You Want Blood, You Got It, into Highway to Hell, all that is my childhood right there. That is what got me into rock music, you know? So that those are must-haves for me. And they got soft goods. I don't even care that they're 8-inch scale retro dolls.
Yeah.
Right.
Whatever. That's
awesome.
That's all me. If they give us the full band, I'm in trouble.
Nice. All right. Last but not least, McFarlane Toys.
Can I do one word on this one?
Yeah. I think, one word.
You can see his face like,
Yeah, I know. He's like, huh.
Yeah.
Ooh. I'm just not a fan, man. I think they're ugly figures. I think their proportions are weird. I think the articulation schemes are ugly. I think it's part of that same predatory sales tactic of like splitting, you know, accessories across multiple releases that could easily have been on one just so they can reuse the molds, giving you the artist proof and act like they're doing you a favor. Like, come on, man. It's wild to me. I get it if you're new at this and you're looking for a flagship DC line that's readily available at retail. If you don't know better, they're going to do you just fine. But I've been in this game too long. I've seen the old McFarlane stuff. I used to have the McFarlane Metallica figures, and I still kind of want them back, you know?
Right.
So, you know, they have made improvements since those Staction figure days. But, God, I'm just not a fan. I appreciate, like, the level of sculpting and detailing and texturing that goes into a lot of the sculpts and stuff, but it's just not me, man. I don't like them.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't like them.
I'm dying to get my hands on a Constantine figure. And I could go run out and get the McFarlane right now if I wanted to. But there's nothing in me that's like, I'll go get the McFarlane.
No.
I want to wait for the Mezco because the Mezco is going to knock my socks off.
Yeah.
The $20 I save not buying the McFarlane is going to go towards the Mezco.
Perfect point. Yeah. I would rather save my money for what I really want.
Right.
There you go.
Even like some of the big figures, I think literally one. I have the Steppenwolf.
Oh, okay.
From Justice League. And that's just because, like, you know, I wanted it to go in the display, but I dislike it so much it's not even in the display. It's just ugly, like the ugly giant pegs that he uses, man. They're so terrible.
Yeah, no thigh swivel really kills it for me too.
I know. I almost broke mine thinking there was one.
Yeah. I've seen Grumps, unfortunately. Sorry, Grumps, I'm shouting you out. But yeah, he was showing it off and he broke it on camera. I felt really bad for him.
And I'm sorry to my friend Pock Photos. I know you love McFarlane, but every time he sends me like one of like the big figs or whatever, saying like, "Oh man, look at this Bane, this Nightfall Bane. That's gonna go great with your Mezcos." I'm like, "No, you know what? I'm good, dude. I made this custom Bane a couple years ago.
God.
That's gonna be just fine."
Yeah.
And this is from a Storm Collectibles actually, so I do like Storm Collectibles. This is the Hulk Hogan.
Oh, okay, nice.
With DC Universe Classics head and belt and a few other parts.
That looks so legit.
Yeah, it looks clean, you know, and it fits the Mezco aesthetic for me, you know.
Yeah,
it even still has
really
the Hollywood Hulk Hogan boots.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
Just never got around to painting those.
Works for Bane though.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not?
Straight up luchador, you know?
Yeah,
exactly.
That's perfect. That's awesome. And that's been our dirty dozen. Hopefully your toaster makes it in time because Nate's in charge of sending everybody toasters.
I owe a lot of toasters, so you may or may not get that.
Oh, Nate, you had one job. Come on.
Yeah, but just huge thanks to you, Fabio. You know, really appreciate you being on with us. You're one of those guys I think we're going to have on at some point again soon, especially after we see maybe what new projects you have in the work for your acting career, and also really talking about Mezco. But yeah, just big thanks to you for being on. For anybody, again, let me plug Fabio again. Please go check out his YouTube, Fabster on YouTube. Follow him on Instagram at Fabster360. He's also on Twitter at Colonel Crackers. Anything else you want to plug, Fabio, before we let you go?
Well, just big shout out to you guys. Thank you again for having me. This was really cool. I know we had to kind of work some dates around and stuff, but this ended up working just fine. And yeah, man, I really dig what you guys are doing with the show. I think when I had first pitched the idea to myself of like coming back and doing like solo shows and streams, I did want it to be sort of discussion based and everything. And I think a lot of the discussions you guys have about some of the habits and the trends in the collecting world right now, I think are really insightful and really cool. And, you know, it's stuff that I think needs to get talked about more. And I come from such more of like a humorist background where I'm doing it to sort of entertain myself, to entertain others and find like a fun spin to these topics where I think you guys actually have the real discussion, you know, and I think that's important to have. So yeah, shout out to you guys. You guys are doing an awesome job with the show and the channel, and happy to have been able to raid you guys a few times after my streams. You know,
yeah,
absolutely.
I appreciate that. We appreciate that.
Yeah, really appreciate your support, man, and the kind words. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So thank you again for having me. This has been really cool. Sorry if I talk too much. That's what I do.
No, you made it easy.
Perfect.
Yeah, that went by real fast. Yeah. Thanks, man. We'll have you on again soon.
For
Go
sure.
check out
Anytime,
Fabio.
man. Hit me up.
All right. Well, that's we're getting to the end of episode 62. I loved that interview. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that too. When you guys are hitting the like button on this, it's a small gesture. It takes you less than a few seconds. Hit the like button. Leave a comment below. What's something that maybe Fabio said that resonated with you? What you think about his performance in Book of Boba Fett? Whatever it is, just leave a comment below. We'd love to hear from you guys. If you haven't already checked it out, go check out our last episode, Changing Lanes, where we talk about, the migration of social media, learn a little bit about Vero. If you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe to us, hit the notification bell so you don't miss when we go live or when we post new episodes. If you want to support the podcast, go to thefigurebooth.com. You can get Figure Booth merch. You can get Prime t-shirts. You can get Spreading Rumors and Starting Beef, which Fabio is doing just there with the McFarlane talk. Yeah. But yeah, you can support the podcast. And last but not least, you can check out prime-arcade.com. You can get one of his budget dials if you missed on when he had it on his Instagram. And always his arcades are available as well.
Yes, sir. And you can keep up with me all under Prime to the First on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Yeah, and you can keep up with me.
Where they keep up with you? Come on, let them know.
Don't
keep them on suspense.
Yeah, at FigureFanNate on Instagram, Vero, and Facebook.
Nice.
And thank you guys for tuning in.
Till next time, guys.
See you next time.